Welcome to the Long Take Review, where four college professors talk film, providing insight, not assigning homework. I'm your host, Jen Sopchockchai Bankard, and I'm here with three blockbusters. First, he arrived in the studio by biplane. It's PT McNiff. How's it going, PT?
There's a new Marvel out that's supposed to be nuts. We should go see that. I'm doing well, Jen. How are you?
Doing great. And he saw F1 and F4, but wants to know what happened to F2 and 3. It's Greg Cass. How's it going, Greg?
And it's true. There are many kinds of death. Some are better than others. The best are peaceful, where we leave each other in love. You love your mother? Hi, Jen. I'm good. I'm very excited to fill in a whole bunch of movies and relive some of the other movies we've talked about. It's going to be a fun episode.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will too. And last but not least, he wants to watch a caveman wedding. It's Antonio Elefano. How are you doing, Antonio?
If a girl asks for a tall drink of water with a salary over $500,000, you deliver. I'm doing great, Jen.
You did not disappoint. All right. Those were all references to what has been a varied, valued, and at times harrowing summer movie season. While we've done a lot of individual reviews, right, and I'm sure we'll be shamelessly plugging those throughout this episode, we thought it might be fun to say goodbye to blockbuster season with some additional thoughts and conversation about what this summer has meant to us, to the industry, and to a certain CGI pooch. You know, Greg's so happy about that, I'm sure. We'll define summer as May 1st through Labor Day, right? We are actually recording this on Labor Day. We did not take the memo, did not get the memo, and are laboring on the day. And just so you know, for the purposes of our discussion, if there's a movie we left out, chances are it's because it doesn't fall in that time frame. Unlike normal episodes, we won't have a spoiler-free section, but our goal is to tread lightly across all films discussed and celebrate the beautiful, the absurd, and the monstrous broadly, right? So, that's for everybody. Like, if you really, really have to share a spoiler, just give us the 20-second warning so people can fast forward. Think of this as your chance to fill up your queue with what we think are the best, the worst, and the most baffling moments this summer. PT, if listeners think we could be the heroes on the Wheaties box. Oh, that's such a good throwback. Sorry. I knew I was going to break the fourth wall. Greg was very gracious and wrote this intro for me. And he's doing a great job. I'm enjoying it a lot. If they want us to be the heroes on the Wheaties box after listening to this episode, what can they do?
They can hold their arms out to their sides and run to follow the Long Take Review wherever you get your podcasts. We host the feed on Jen's Substack at thelongtake.substack.com. But you can also find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, YouTube, and more. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. You can also follow us on social media. We are on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. And we're also on Letterboxd. The account is at LTR Pod. And you can follow that, or you can search for the hashtag LTRpod to see what each of us individually has been watching, assuming that we've watched more than what we're going to talk about over the course of the summer with all these great movies that we're going to be discussing. Jen?
I was going to say that's more true for some of us on this call than others. So we are still going to, as usual, start with the short take, but talk about the summer in general. So how was everyone's summer at the movies, and how, especially in particular, how does this compare to previous summers?
Greg sees the most. He should go.
You're the engineer behind this episode. So kick us off.
Thanks. So I actually, I wrote the question, then I got the longest to think about it. And I was thinking about the fact that I had a very solid summer at the movies. And for those of you who somehow don't know this, I'm an AMC Stubs member. And in mid-May, they upped us from 3 movies per week to 4 movies per week. And I maxed out that membership for most of May and June, and then actually managed to have a social life and see my children and wife in July and August. So I didn't do it all summer, but I managed to see just about everything that came out. I have not caught Oh, that was almost a pun accidentally. I have not caught stealing this weekend, the new Aronofsky film, and I think the most notable I missed along the way, perhaps the most infamous, is Megan 2.0, which I just did not get to, and it disappeared very quickly. So other than that, I saw pretty much everything, and I did not have that many horrible times at the movies. I had some disappointing times at the movies. I had some, gee, maybe I can leave before the half hour mark. I kind of get this type movies. But for the most part, I really, enjoyed the majority of the summer blockbusters. I think, it's hard to compare to some recent years. There was no big Barbenheimer this year, but, the franchise installments were pretty solid. And, there was a kind of way in which last year and this year are thought of as like kind of off years because of the strikes and so on. And yet I found this year more pleasing than last year, even if I didn't get something that I maybe loved as much as Deadpool and Wolverine, right? There might not have been the high highs, but the kind of average score was pretty down the middle. I'll throw it to Antonio. And how has your summer at the movies been?
It's been perfectly fine. I think that it's been comparatively quiet. I think compared to Barbenheimer is the modern standard for sort of cinematic summer glory. And I think it's also that the summer comes in the shadow of like a really strong spring, particularly propelled by like Sinners and we all really love Black Bag. So I think that sort of set my expectations like, oh, this is going to be an amazing year at the movies. But there wasn't that much in the summer in particular that I was like super, super excited about. The things that I did really, really like were kind of surprising. But this has always been like the time of year that's sort of like where I hibernate a little bit and don't spend quite as much time at the movies. But there were pleasures to be had, and a lot of them came from recommendations from the three of you. So PT, I'll throw it to you. How about you?
Oh, well, yeah, I probably saw a number in between Greg and Antonio, just closer to Antonio probably. But I was surprised when I started making a list to prepare for this of like, what have I actually seen? There was like a decent number of movies, and I was like, yeah, I had a good time with all of these. I have a bunch of gaps, which maybe will come up. Presumably when Greg says something and I'm like, yes, I didn't see that. But there's a few things I really wanted to see that I didn't get a chance to. There was a few kind of, between work and other events happening around. There were some black holes of getting to the theater. But yeah, I thought it was solid. There were movies I liked a lot last summer that I don't think I've gotten up to that point for the period we are talking about. To Antonio's point, is there's a few movies from the start of the year that I think were stronger than any movies from that period last year, maybe even the year before. But yeah, this was, I think this has been pretty good. I haven't been like absolutely blown away. I'm very curious, not to get ahead of ourselves before we do this episode. I'm very curious what lies in store for the rest of the year. What we're looking, what the end of the year episode, what the letters awards, the LTR awards will look like in January, and how I'll be feeling versus how I feel now. But yeah, it was pretty good. Like I've had a good time watching movies. I like movies. Jen, do you like movies?
Yes, although don't look at my Letterboxd numbers. That will conflict with that statement. Personally, I had a great summer going to the movies. I managed to get to the movie theater probably a little bit more than I normally would during the summer. And it's a weird summer because on the one hand, I feel like there were movies that I was pleasantly surprised were actually pretty good or that I liked, because I was kind of bracing myself to be disappointed looking at you superhero movies. And but at the same time, those movies like either tanked at the box office more or less, or like were disappointments at the box office, or like critics like that. It's just confusing because it's like some of them critics liked, but then no one went to go see them. Other ones people really were excited about, but then had more polarizing reviews. So I'd say it's kind of, in general, from that perspective, it's a little bit of a mixed summer. Also, the weirdness of, not to spoil anything that I'm going to talk about later, but the most popular movie with most people in my life this summer was actually on Netflix and not in the theaters until recently. But
Happy
again,
Gilmore too. Yeah, you
that's just-
loved it. You haven't stopped talking about it.
I'm not going to take the bait, Greg.
Say the name though, so people know.
Right. So like K-pop Demon Hunters, right? If you've been living under a rock, like, to spoil my answer for one of the things we're going to talk about later, arguably the movie of the summer, at least in my
Only
circle.
one? I was pegging it to be like 5 of your answers.
Well, I didn't. Content is more important than
Okay. Honesty.
than being true to myself. I guess. I worked really hard not to make that my answer for everything because I thought that would be boring. There's gonna be plenty of it. Like, I've already talked about it too much, considering how much I'm probably gonna end up talking about it later. So I'll leave it at that. So yeah, it's just an interesting summer. I'd say that I think in some ways better than I expected. I'd say compared to like the way the industry was talking about it, seems better than expected, though people have a few complaints still. So pretty good. All right. So Greg has, to kind of codify this a little bit more, Greg has put together a fantastic slate of categories. Greg, did you want to, I don't want to speak for you. Did you want to say anything about the creation of these categories? Yeah.
Yeah, so we came up with the idea that it'd be really fun to do just kind of a debrief on the full summer, and we batted around a couple ideas, and I landed on and then railroaded them all into doing summer superlatives, right? Trying not to just make this an early LTR, because we would hope that the majority of LTR winners are probably, well, I'm sure Sinners will pick up a few, but I bet we haven't seen the majority of LTR-worthy films yet. So I think it was, I think the idea, it was to kind of acknowledge that maybe Summer Blockbuster season is sillier and less serious, but does have its importance in the industry and is a big part of, what keeps theaters open, right? So that they will play one quiet screen of whatever art house movie we're determined to see with subtitles before the Oscar ceremony. So my main idea here was to take it a little silly and then to take it a little serious. So the first chunk are going to be kind of pure ripped from your high school yearbook superlatives. So we'll go around. I'll do the first one, and then we'll pass it around in the order you just heard us, Greg to Antonio to PT to Jen. And we'll each introduce the category and offer our nominee. And then after that, we will hear everybody else's nominee for that award. And then, we don't have to come to a consensus. Our goal is really just to tell you about the things we love this summer and what we haven't yet gotten to talk about, perhaps, in a few cases. I already name-checked Happy Gilmore 2, which is the abomination of the summer in my book. I don't care how many people watched it on Netflix. So we'll get around to it. So, and then the second half is a little more towards the LTRs. We'll do a quick, most likely to win an Academy Award, Best Screenplay, Best Director, Best Performance, and Best Movie. And maybe one little bonus we've snuck in at the end. So we'll see how it goes. All right, panelists, are you ready? Are you prepared? Did you flip open your high school yearbook to see what these categories meant? So I've done my best to kind of give a version that applies to movies for each of these. So even though I'm like morally opposed to this category, a lot of high schools use most athletic, right? Who's the jock that just everybody wanted to be? And so for movies, I translated a most athletic to the best action sequence. And actually, this is like the one category I did not want to go first on. So I will say, from my perspective, there's one obvious choice for the best action sequence of summer, and it's so obvious that I'm going to set it aside, assuming somebody else picks it. I'm looking at you, PT. So I will pick one that I don't think most of the panel saw, which is the very aptly maligned Jurassic World Rebirth. Not a great movie, but not as bad as a lot of people shared it. There are a few really knockout action sequences here, but if I had to pick one, I would say it is a sequence in which a family of characters is traveling down a river on an inflatable raft while being chased and hunted by a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And like, look, that's what I go to the movies for. That's what I go to a Jurassic Park movie for. I want to see people in danger. I want to see something kind of inventive. As you might imagine, they flip under the raft, they hide it behind bushes, they get separated. Oh no, the dinosaur's going to eat that family member. Oh no, it's actually this family member. And it's just like the exact kind of stupid, silly peril. And I thought Gareth Edwards is the director of Jurassic World Rebirth, he of Rogue One and the creator. And I thought he did a great job. So I had a ton of fun with that action sequence. Could also say the shooting the giant whale dinosaur.
Mosasaurus.
Sounds like I'm talking about Mosasaurus. Sounded like I was talking about Avatar there for a minute. That sequence would also be worthy of this award. But those are my that I'm sticking to it. I'm taking the raft with the Tyrannosaurus Rex. Antonio, you actually did not see the one that I think is the most obvious candidate, I believe. So what's yours for action sequence?
So for me, it was the F1 final race. What I liked about this was that I'd seen, we've all seen lots of racing movies, so it's just sort of like, okay, like it's just that you win or you lose. Those are the options. And what was great about F1, I thought, was that because you had two people that you were sort of rooting for, and they were sort of also at times working in tandem with one helping the other at various times, that it actually changed the number of possibilities. And so I think that element of uncertainty and the character building up to that moment made the sequence really satisfying just from a narrative standpoint, but also just like a really well done sequence that like explained the logistics of racing in a way that I found still like really riveting. So for me, that was my favorite action movie and my favorite action sequence of the summer, keeping in mind that I saw very few action movies over the summer. PT, what about you?
All right, well, I will take the bait, and I will say the obvious one, though I had a couple of backups. We didn't really lay out what the order would be, so I was like, I had to be prepared. But yeah, it is spoilers, even though it's the poster and a lot of the trailer. It is the main action sequence of Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which involves a couple of biplanes for reasons that are explained in the plot. They're old-timey biplanes, and it's just incredible aerial cinematography, insane stunt performance from Tom Cruise, who is a madman and is showing his madman skills. They've been teasing this for a long time. This was the sequence, or the setting for this sequence, and these old-timey planes was where Tom Cruise filmed his Welcome to Top Gun Maverick, which was what, two years ago. So this has been kind of built. They called their shot a long time ago that like this was going to be, this is presumably, or at least theoretically, the last Mission Impossible movie in the Tom Cruise era. This is going to be the big thing, and we can get into it. What to the degree that Mission Impossible Final Reckoning works, and there's a lot of downtime in that movie, and maybe things don't fully come together. But then there's this like 20-minute action sequence that is incredible and is the reason you go see movies on the big screen and connect with kinetic action filmmaking. And that was the peak of that type of thing, and maybe other types of things during the course of this summer for me, in my opinion. So I will say that the biplane sequence, already referenced at least once in this episode, but we'll stick with that.
I just want to say I heard somebody on the Filmcast pointed out that we will never again see a montage of Hollywood history that doesn't have that biplane chase in it. And that kind of feels right to me, right? Made me think of Babylon, right? Where they go through the history of film, and like that kind of thing would definitely have the biplane sequence in it.
For sure. Jen, what's your answer?
So mine is, and I was pretty confident no one else was going to have this as the lone Superman supporter on this show, but mine is the Mr. Terrific fight from Superman. So granted, this may be a sign that there's a larger problem in the movie as a whole because Superman is not actually in the scene. And it's the best fight scene. But to me, this was just so classic James Gunn and like so slick and kind of clever and irreverent. And it's the very stereotypical James Gunn. We got a pop song playing in the background while a hero is kind of going through and dispensing with a bunch of red shirt type people, and it's and we have the added bonus of Rachel Brosnahan just like looking on in awe as this happens. And to me, I think this was not just the fight choreography and it was like really fun scene, but I thought it was so emblematic of the success of that movie. Granted, I acknowledge the movie does have its issues. Also, you can go listen to our very contentious review of it where Greg and I fight about crypto. But it's Mr. Terrific is a pretty obscure character that not a lot of people know about from DC Comics. And so to just throw him into a movie and have him be the main player in an action set piece like this, I think was a bold move and a good move. So that's my most athletic. It's a good flex.
Anybody want to throw in any that weren't mentioned before we move on? We're good?
I don't, only because everything... Well, you know what? Only because there's some other things that I'm saving the movie for later, but this is not one where I've saved the movie for later, maybe as a spoiler. I did have on my list the scene from Fantastic Four where they're getting away from Galactus and Mrs. Fantastic Four is giving birth. Sue Storm. And the Silver Surfer's chasing them. I thought that was the best part of that movie, and that was a good action scene. I'm glad I didn't have to choose it for my answer because I don't know if I would be like, it's the best. But I wanted to mention it.
I just want to mention I did watch Jurassic World Rebirth. I want credit for that. I watched it this weekend. and like people need to chill out. It was not bad. It was fine. It's good. Like Greg said, it has good action sequences with actually a lot of humor. So the thing I'll add to what Greg said is that scene ends with the kind of classic Spielberg action humor.
So most likely to succeed, the film that will have the best legacy. So for me, Jen has already mentioned this movie, and I'm going to just say, I'm going to be saying this movie a lot. This is K-pop Demon Hunters. In terms of like sheer surprise going from a title to like watching the film, the closest comp I could come to was like for the longest time people saying like you should watch Battlestar Galactica, and I was like, I can't. I don't even know it. I will not. And then I just broke down and I watched the pilot and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then the same thing happened where Jen mentioned like, oh, he really wants us to see K-pop Demon Hunters. I was like, okay, have fun. But then I listened to the short take of that episode and I was like, well, okay, let's do this. And my kids really wanted to watch it. I just loved it. I took my kids to a friend's house last night and was delighted when I heard all four of the boys singing Soda Pop by a pool. I think that it was just such a phenomenon, like in a summer that was sort of like thirsty for like a phenomenon. This was the sort of unexpected story. But also just like a really well-crafted movie, like if my 8-year-old and I could both really like it for a lot of the same reasons and some different reasons too, then it's just a well-constructed film. So that was my most likely to succeed. PT, what about you?
Well, I think it's really important for the purposes of content that we try to all have backup answers for each of the categories, which I dutifully did for every category except for this one, because the answer is K-pop Demon Hunters. It's very clearly that this is the one that is going to have the best legacy. And that is everything Antonio said. It's also like the fact that I believe it's the first movie that went from Netflix to the theaters, and it was the kind of sing-along variant on it, and was kind of like that only happens because people are into it, and it's like, oh well, folks will want to go and do this thing. But like that is breaking down a barrier. Netflix does not want to ever put anything into a theater except for the theaters it owns in New York and LA. It would love to avoid otherwise putting it in theaters. So I think that is huge. It's not like people are not like K-pop is not already a super popular genre, but I do think there's corners of society that maybe would be like, okay, yeah, no, that's not my thing. I don't know the language. I don't get it. I don't like that kind of music, whatever, who will be exposed to it and maybe get into it because of this. So I think in that sense, it's important. It's also, there's been I don't know if it's fair to say a lot. There's certainly been a number of movies trying to capture that Spider-Verse animated style, aesthetic and energy. And, up until now, I would say the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, Mutant Mayhem, is the closest to have maybe gotten to that level. But I think that, this is one that at least, if quality, we can all discuss, like, it's all upper echelon quality, but, I don't know if it's as good as the Spider-Verse movies, but it's certainly kind of, this shows that can succeed outside of comic book movies, superhero movies. This can be its own thing. So, yeah, I think, it's just this movie. It's K-pop Demon Hunters. There's no doubt. I watched it last. Like, I mean, Antonio was like, I don't know about that. And he said all of that. I still watched it like a week and a half after he said it was good. And I was still like, I don't know if I believe it. But everybody in my life who has seen this said it was good and said it's worth watching. And I was like, I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know if I'm going to like it. And because people know me in musicals. I don't know, but it was really good. It was. It's good, and I think it fits this category. It's the only real answer for most likely to succeed. Let me see on this list. Jen, what's your answer to this?
I was gonna say, please let me talk because I also have this as my answer. And let's just bring some cold hard facts to this conversation. One is that this movie is Netflix. PT's laughing at me. This is Netflix's number one most watched, most popular movie of all time. It's throughout the summer, this movie has just been slowly breaking different records. Like for a while it was like, oh, it's on its way to being the most watched animated movie on Netflix. And now it's just like purely the best movie on Netflix, right? And never mind all the songs and the soundtrack are topping up all sorts of Billboard and Spotify charts and all that stuff. If you haven't listened to our episode, none of these fools are on it, but we have a great episode reviewing K-pop Demon Hunters. So if we're speaking your language, you can go check out that episode. But yeah, it's perfect for this category. I actually went to the sing-along screening with my daughter and some of her friends. It was the closest, like, people often use the phrase take us to church or that like we're going to church like too liberally. Not here. This was like all of these kids were just like screaming the lines and the lyrics to the song from ranging all ages. They were like the too cool for school, like early in their 20s, people doing the TikTok dances in the theater. There were the little tiny little kids who were screaming like, I love you, Ginu, right? And like it's like and everyone's singing at the top of their lungs, kids standing in the seats dancing. Like it was just incredible. So yeah, I think we are, the only downside potentially is now they're never going to stop making these movies, even if they're bad. So I am a little worried about that, but let's just enjoy the moment while it's happening. Greg, did you have something else? Because I know you, out of the four of us, you were the coolest on this movie.
Yeah, I would say I was the coolest, but that I really don't want to diminish that. I think this is the right answer. And, as somebody who this piece of, film did not like deeply speak to me, it has felt very much like I'm on the outside all summer. And that's the clear sign that the consensus is correct, right? Like it didn't land with me, but I should give it another try. Actually, my kids have not wanted to try it. Now we're just getting back to school in a serious way this week. So I bet they hear about it and maybe will want to try it. But I've offered to watch it with them. It's, it's always on the top of their Netflix, algorithm, but they haven't tried it. So, that is definitely the right answer. I think what's interesting is I framed it as what film will have the best legacy. And, the unknowable part of that question is like, what are they going to do with this? Because it could have an incredible legacy, and it could be a trilogy or a series that's incredible. But I don't know that I trust Netflix. The majority of the kids' content on Netflix is so bad. If Netflix gets to control this, there'll be 5 spin-offs. This happens a lot. If like my kids love Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and then DreamWorks spits out a like half-assed like cartoon spin-off show on Netflix where like the characters don't quite move right, and it certainly doesn't have any of the artistry of the show. So I hope Netflix plays it right, and I think Sony probably gets to make more of the decisions than Netflix. And I think if done correctly, I mean, how could this not be comics and, a TV series and, novels? I think they both gave a really compelling modern mythology and something you could set 100 years ago and do it a different way and so on. So I think there's real potential there. My actual answer is what we talked about when last we were gathered, which is weapons. And I think looking at weapons, this feels like the moment Zach Krager arrived, right? Like, and that's no disrespect to Barbarian, but we have so many like one-hit wonders. See Megan, right? And M3gan. Sorry, Jen, I saw you roll your eyes that I didn't pronounce the 3. So I do think like we have a one-hit wonder oftentimes in the horror genre. That's kind of where Osgood Perkins is falling for me right now, because I thought The Monkey was kind of bad. And I didn't love Longlegs that much, for being honest. Just sending some strays to Osgood Perkins. But I do think with weapons, we saw a serious filmmaker get a much more inflated budget with much better talent. And I think it really delivered. And that is a great discussion where we all were positive, but not, some of us more so than others. But it felt like a real, like, this filmmaker has arrived moment. And I think that was pretty good. I will open it up to the others with any like ones that almost made the list by offering mine, which is, I think 28 Years Later is probably the best movie we haven't discussed on this show this summer. And that's what my opening quote was from, if you didn't know. And so that would be another one where I think that was much, much better than I think it had any right to be. And especially if that follow-up coming in January delivers and there's supposed to be a third. If those all are all good, I think this could be like, oh wow, they really found that franchise and did something special there. Any other honorary mentions?
I will say no to the honorary mentions, but I will note that I don't know about other people here. I have not seen 28 Years Later either. But I made a little list of the movies I wish I had seen to be able to successfully feel like I did that, and that was one of the few. And I believe Antonio's opening quote was from Materialists, which I have also still not seen because I wanted to see it in the theater. But the weeks when it was in the theater were the weeks I couldn't go, and so I was like, well, it'll crop up somewhere else, and it has not. So
didn't you draft that in our hype draft?
Yeah, I'm still hyped for it. But I haven't had a chance to see it yet because the government was blocking me from getting to my movie theater. So yeah. Goodness. But what I will just say, in lieu of having another option, is not to push back, but just to respond to what Greg was saying about the potential legacy issues of K-pop Demon Hunters, which is in having. We're now 4 or 5 episodes into Alien Earth for those who are watching it as it unfolds. And I watched all the Alien movies around Alien Romulus. And I also watched all the sequels to Jaws after we did the 50th anniversary of Jaws here in this episode. And Alien and Jaws are still amazing, regardless of what happened in the other movies. And I don't mean to disrespect Alien Earth. I'm enjoying it. I've got some question marks. I have some notes, but there's varying qualities of things that happen. We are here in a podcast of full of Star Wars fans and also Marvel heads. So I think we're maybe not the best people to speak about like what happens if something's driven into the ground. But I think that regardless of what happens, even if everything else that follows from K-pop Demon Hunters is bad, this movie still has what it has. And it affects the legacy for sure. But I think that it will say that. And while I said I didn't have a backup, weapons was like my default sort of backup if I really needed to say something else. So I am with you on that, Greg.
I've been doing light research on the sequel situation in terms of the studios, Netflix and Sony. So for those of you who don't know, Sony sold this movie off to Netflix, I think during COVID. Like they kind of dumped it and said, here, you take it, Netflix. And now they don't really make any money off of the current success of it, I think. And that's like Matt Bellamy in Puck News called it like the tragedy of Sony's Sony losing Netflix K-pop, like, because the producer basically is getting no credit because they gave away this movie. But it looks like it's Sony and Netflix are in talks to do sequels, so it looks like Sony won't be left out of the equation going forward. So it's not like Netflix is like, hee, we've got all the money, and then like runs off with the IP. I think they have to come back to the table to work something out. So hopefully that'll bode well.
Okay, let's move on to our next category, which is a class clown, a longstanding favorite of yearbooks everywhere. And this was meant to imply the best joke or gag that we saw in a movie from this summer. And mine was easy. I was like, I had a clear favorite comedy. It was my opening quote, or it was my opening quote was from this. It was Friendship, which was the A24 movie starring Tim Robinson, formerly of Saturday Night Live, and I Think You Should Leave, the sketch series on Netflix, along with Paul Rudd and Kate Mara. And it's basically, what if a Tim Robinson character from I Think You Should Leave is placed in the middle of a A24 movie? And that is... that, it worked for me. That was very funny. Because it's sort of a spoiler because it's later on in the movie. I will just say that the culmination of my favorite, my class clown entry is the sentence, "I went to Subway," which doesn't make sense if you haven't seen it. Only Greg is chuckling because I think he's the only one who saw it. But that was incredible. And I saw that in one of the early release weekends. Like, it was open for a week or two in a few select theaters before it opened wider. And I mean, very kind of hip, whatever, LA people who would like that kind of comedy had packed out this theater. And like from the first 15 seconds of this movie, people were laughing just seeing his face in a movie. People were enjoying it. And people were really responsive. It was a hot room, very responsive to this. But that was the moment I laughed the loudest. That was my, to tap into an Antonio memory. That was my theater camp laugh of the summer, was the sequence that ended with "I went to Subway." So, Jen, what was your favorite joke or gag of the summer?
So, again, this is one that I'm pretty confident no one else is going to have, but there's a bit with a car seat in Fantastic Four that I laughed uncontrollably. Probably more than I should have. It was one of those things where, like, this movie really got on my wavelength in terms of like parenting humor. And so just the way that they're all just like fumbling with this car seat towards the end of the movie is just, I lost it. And that's probably not the right answer, but that's my answer.
I have found that to be very divisive as I'm in the Fantastic Four chunk of my summer podcasts from about a month ago, that people are like, oh my God, it was the cherry on top of the sundae, or like, I needed this movie to end and every second of it was torture. So it is very funny. I laughed a lot at it, although like I do get, it's kind of like you were just saying, the most predictable kind of parenting joke, yet it kind of works. So I think I'm the only one on the panel who saw the Naked Gun. And I didn't choose something from that, but I wanted to say the reason I didn't make this category like funniest movie is because like there were so few comedies. I think we would have to go like Friendship or Naked Gun, and it really doesn't work out for two of you who haven't seen either of those. So there are many gags. I'll use one from that movie for my honorable mention in a moment, but I will say what I chose for this is a movie I just saw last weekend. I actually saw it early. It's out this weekend, and it's called Splitsville, which is the other Dakota Johnson movie of the summer. So it's Dakota Johnson Adria Arjona and two guys who I don't know who they are. And when I got tickets to an advanced screening, they said two of the actors will be there. And guess what? It was the two guys who I didn't know who they are. Made all the funnier that one of them has a nude scene and then stood like immediately in front of me so that my head was at the level of his groin. And it was just like, well, we're reliving all this. He was clothed at the time. But so I will say this, Splitsville is very, very funny. I actually laughed more at it than I did at The Naked Gun. And I will keep it kind of spoiler free because of this, but I will say there's a sequence where a child wins many, many goldfish at the carnival game, where you like throw a little ring on something. And then one of the characters boards a roller coaster carrying the like 10 goldfish in plastic bags. And it is the hardest I have ever laughed in a movie theater in a very long time. So Naked Gun included. So that's my pick. It's really just an endorsement. I think that's a pretty small release, but it was a really fun time at the movies. It's just insane. And I actually liked Dakota Johnson compared to Materialist, where I did not find her to be a living human being. So I really would recommend it for those who are trying to like her. Antonio, did you laugh at the movies this summer?
Not as much as I would like to. You're right. There weren't a lot of comedies. I actually did kind of want to see the Naked Gun movie, but I didn't want to see. Comedies are good with friends, or I tried to get my kids to see it, but they had absolutely no interest. So I'm going to go with the other Dakota Johnson movie. Dakota Johnson is not funny in The Materialist, but the clients of The Materialist, the sequence where we get her clients and we see all of these people who have these sort of unreasonable expectations about dating. I found that to be like just a really effective skewering of like a type of person. And my theater was roaring through the whole thing, and I really enjoyed it. Like the further I get away from The Materialist, the less I'm sort of affected by its virtues and its spell. But there were parts of it that I really, really enjoyed, and that was the part that really felt the most like pure comedy, and then the rest veers into drama. But that hit for me. Any other entries for Class Clown?
I'll give my slight spoiler warning. So this is just one gag of about 2 million in Naked Gun, but they do a great Mission Impossible parody where Liam Neeson's character is interrogating a character and gets the piece of information, and they drop down the walls and dramatically reveal it was all a sting. And he says something akin to somebody in the room is like, "This won't hold up in court. You can't do this." And he says, "What are you talking about? I do this all the time." And then the next set of walls drop down, and it is Internal Affairs have busted him for admitting that he always entraps people this way. And the Internal Affairs woman is like, "We finally got you. We've been trying to nail you forever. And, nobody could have gotten away from us like this except someone else." And then the third set of walls drop down, and then it's a typical. I always think of The Simpsons for those jokes where it's like it's okay, and then it's a little funnier, and then it's way funnier just because of the repetition. So, very good gag, but yeah, there's a lot of dumb stuff in that movie, but it moves so fast, and you laugh so hard at the stuff that hits. It's a good time. So definitely next airplane flight, throw that on. You won't be disappointed.
I'm more comfortable watching on airplane than Airplane.
All right. So I think up next we have Cutest Couple. So what movie had the best on-screen chemistry this summer? So I had Benedict Wong and Clayton Ferris in Weapons because I had to review. This is a little behind the scenes for our listeners. I had to edit and therefore listen to our review of Weapons not once but twice due to technical difficulties. And the number of times we call that couple adorable, and the length of time we spend talking about their whole setup and their relationship and how cute they are was worth noting. So that's my official pick.
Very nicely done. I had a few answers for this, and I'll come back to some of those movies later, perhaps. I will say quietish summer for rom-coms at the box office, but that is what is heating up the Netflix and Prime Video charts, especially if you want to see a super intelligent young woman fall in love with a rich European. Boy, do they have movies for you. It could be at Oxford. It could be in Paris. Name your European country and you can watch that. It's almost like women are fantasizing about escaping from American men for some reason. What a strange time in history. But my choice for best chemistry, and again, I define this broadly because I didn't want to restrict it to just romantic couples. So I have two actors here who played characters in the same movie. The characters I do not believe were meant to have like incredible chemistry, but it was sizzling. And every back and forth between these two actors made me smile, and I was so excited. And that, of course, is from Mission Impossible Final Reckoning, Tom Cruise and Katie O'Brien, who were just, I have no idea why those characters connected so much, but every time they spoke to each other, it wasn't necessarily like sexual tension. It was just like, wow, these people are really into each other. Like, sign me up for that movie. Cut an hour out of the start of that movie and just have Tom Cruise and Katie O'Brien drinking hard liquor out of mugs in a submarine. That's a great movie. I'll take that any day. Antonio?
I had a hard time with this category because the one sort of like romantic comedy-ish thing, I actually didn't find the chemistry to be that electric. So when in doubt, K-pop Demon Hunters, Rumi and Jinu from K-pop Demon Hunters was my best on-screen chemistry. I mean, they're gorgeous. They both have wonderful voices. That's my pick. PT, how about you?
I love it. This one similarly. I should have seen Materialists, even though it sounds like, based on what three people are saying or not saying here, that was not necessarily going to be the path to an answer. I did consider giving a joke answer here to say Robert De Niro and Robert De Niro in The Alto Nights, but that came out in March, so not eligible. And that's it. Everything I had was kind of like, either it's really small or it's from a movie I want to mention somewhere else. So this is a good place for me to at least mention that I saw F1 and to say Brad Pitt and Kerry Condon, even though it seemed like a little questionable that Kerry Condon's character would make the choice that she made to even begin to couple up with Brad Pitt. But whatever, that's boring to get too worried about the morality of things in F1 the movie. But Brad Pitt was, kind of, Brad Pitting his way through that role, said positively. And Kerry Condon is excellent and felt like she was able to be like, yeah, I can't resist this guy. This guy is great. And I enjoyed the two of them together. I liked their banter. I liked everything about their dynamic, again, except for the potential lapse in professionalism of be careful about dating your coworkers and maybe your bosses. But whatever. It was that was fun. So I'm gonna put them out here for this category. Romance a little thin on the ground for this summer, or at least like the couples. When I'm thinking of couples, I'm not thinking about like the cutest ones, and more ones who were doing other things together. I don't know, but yeah. Any honorable mentions for anybody or extra of
I would just
note?
say another non-romantic one would be Florence Pugh and David Harbour. I always love seeing them as father and daughter. I think they have great chemistry. And I think their chemistry has made it so those characters have a longer lifespan in the MCU than they maybe otherwise would.
I was thinking Sebastian Stan and his chili dog. That was real love.
Nice.
That was True Love and Thunderbolts. Now available to stream on Disney+.
Oh, that's right.
PT, did you consider Brad Pitt and Javier Bardem? Because I think there's a good case for that chemistry too.
There is, but then I wouldn't be able to talk about Kerry Condon, and why would I ever make that choice?
That's true. That's
fair.
true.
All right. Who's next?
Oh, it's back over to me.
Yep.
It's back to the top. So, all right, we have and just like sidebar shout out, high school yearbooks that are still saying which couple is the cutest. That was always a bad move. The chances of when you lock the yearbook in January and the high school couple still being together in June, that's just you're playing with fire. 100%. So there's also a category, again, thank you Google, AI summary, that a lot of yearbooks use most changed, which is an interesting one to throw at high schoolers as well. But we're not here to debate the American education system. So I was thinking about most changed. I called this like the biggest WTF moment. And where I kind of came to that is like, most change could be like the moment that broke your expectations the most, or when a movie just suddenly took a totally different direction. And things along those lines. I was saying before we started recording, I saw The Roses this weekend, and there's a real kind of moment in that could be eligible here, but I won't talk through it. So I will return to talking about the Lost the Lost LTR episode, which has never been recorded, which is that Jen and I prepared for an Eddington episode. And there's nothing in this theater that made me say WTF more than the third act of Eddington, which goes just so far off the charts in terms of what that movie had been, of what like common decency would say it should be, and just goes to this totally wild place. And I will say I've made it through the chunk of former podcasts about Ari Aster making the rounds and explaining it, and I totally get what he was going for. But man, was this a absolutely crazy time at the movies. Since we're all friends here, I'll say I went and saw Eddington twice because I went one time and had too much to drink beforehand and thought I probably had dreamed the end of the movie in some kind of drunken stupor. And then I went a second time stone cold sober and was like, nope, I actually had it exactly right. I remembered this completely. So it is wild. I think this is why critics are so divided on that movie. But it's just absolutely the most changed from what that movie had been and what it kind of seemed to be from its marketing. Antonio, it's a weird category. See what you can do with it. Oh, Jen,
I was going to say, I had the same one. So
okay.
I feel like I should piggyback off what you're saying. So I went back and forth between the last 10 minutes of Eddington, and eventually I was like, you know what? It's the entire third act. Like where you're kind of like, oh, we're doing this now? I don't like it. I don't like it. And head scratching in kind of a bad way. And like, what did I just watch? I actually think this way I texted all of you. I was like, what did I just watch? So yeah. But anyway, maybe we'll probably not going to get to talk about it again, Greg.
We don't need to. We'll talk to our therapists instead.
Yeah. For me, because again, if we're not going to talk about it again, for me, it was like the first two acts were more, I was engaged with the ideas of them more, but at the same time, it was very amorphous in terms of like what the ideas could be. Like it was like, I was like, oh, I get it. Like COVID was a crazy time for all of these crazy reasons. And you're kind of like just putting that to screen. Great. I'm on board. This is probably an important project for a film to do. And then when it hits the third act, I was just like, well, in theory, this is clarifying some things, but it's also super weird and taking a hard left, and I don't understand it. So that's my mini review of Eddington. I'm sorry you had to watch it twice, Greg.
Well, and by hard left, you really mean like a hard turn to the right.
Oh, sure.
Right? Like it's so bizarre.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. But maybe not. I don't know. That's the thing.
Yeah, but maybe an ironic turn to the right.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway.
You would listen to an episode, let us know.
If you would want to listen to
Greg
and I try, if you want to listen to Greg and I try to parse through Eddington, just let us know.
It's the longtakereview@gmail.com.
So, but mine is different because I didn't see Eddington. But so for me, it was from weapons. It was I just wrote Aunt Gladys. While I take issue with the connection between the structure of the movie and its plot sort of revealed engine, I think there's no denying that Aunt Gladys is sort of the character of the summer. Her first appearance is a shock, and her last scene in the movie is the most messed up climax of a film I've seen in a while. So, so you know, that's my answer. PT, what's yours?
Well, okay, I have a better answer than the one I'm going to give, but it's a movie I want to talk about in another category. So if you're interested, you can pin this, and when I come back, I'll try to remember to refer back to this. But there's I want to mention here a movie that I am incredibly confident no one else is going to bring up, which is the animated anthology movie Predator: Killer of Killers, which is the new installment in the Predator franchise, and is also from Dan Trachtenberg, along with other collaborators who did Prey, the most recent, I don't want to say theatrical because that got dumped on Hulu, unfortunately, should have been in the theaters, but an excellent installment in the Predator movies, which set basically like, what if a predator goes back to the times of when Native Americans were in charge of the land here and has to fight, Native Americans have to deal with a predator. And so this is an anthology movie that takes that idea and shows other time periods. And when this was announced, where it was basically, they were like, there's going to be a live action new Predator movie, which is not doing this, but doing something else with predators. And I was like, but this is what I want in my live action Predators. What do we do? This was you found the formula. Just give me a different historical. That's annoying. And so it's a two-step a WTF, or a two-step change of reactions, which is first realizing, oh, I do kind of love this in an animated format. Like, I am kind of happy that we're like, maybe I still wanted a live action, but I like that we're getting these short stories and how that's working. And then the cumulative nature of what happens across these stories is not what I expected. And I'm not going to say more than that. On the off chance there's people that are like, I can't wait to watch this Predator movie, but I could because I haven't seen it yet. So, it's worth checking out if you have any potential interest. And if you like the movie Prey, even if you're like, have a bad opinion like Greg, who doesn't understand the original Predator, but maybe liked Prey, it's worth going in and checking this out. And I was interested in and was surprised at where this collection of stories went. So I will leave it at that, because saying more would, I think, be a spoiler. But Predator: Killer of Killers is my entrant here.
I will endorse Prey, and I will endorse this one as well. I actually found myself really not excited about the new theatrical release Predator, because I thought they, just as you said, they found the formula, then they kind of blew the formula up, and now it's like, oh, but you're just going to have half a fanning on the back of a CGI monster. Okay. If you've seen the trailer, that makes sense. But it really sounds weird now. But agree that this was actually a pretty wild time. I also want to just add a note. I didn't mention during our weapons review, but Antonio opened up the space. When I was watching Weapons, I was sitting next to two late high school, early college age women who had, I don't know what made them want to see this. They didn't seem like the horror types, but maybe they are. And when the climax comes to Aunt Gladys's character, one turned to the other and just said, "This is really effed up," but didn't say effed. And the other one just went like, yeah. And so PT pointed out, like, they gave me the best Letterboxd review of all time, and I didn't take it. But clearly, that last moment was beyond the pale. Even some of us were cackling with glee, and some of us were saying, like, this is the end of humanity.
All right. So next category is Life of the Party. And the most fun watch. I'm the least fun because I keep saying the same thing. It's I have K-pop Demon Hunters again. I will say this is a summer when I fell asleep at the movies the most, and they weren't necessarily bad movies, but I fell asleep during Superman, How to Train Your Dragon, and Elio, and around the same time, around like the first act. It's almost like sort of like my cinema brain was like, "You'll catch up, Elefano. It's going to be okay. Their character development, blah blah blah, and you'll get there when you wake up in like 15 minutes." And I was always fine for those. But yeah, I just had a great time. As I said, it was a great time for the whole family. PT, what do you think? What was yours?
I mean, I endorse that as an answer. Again, in the interest of variety, I was trying to get different movies in for different categories. I had for this one Final Destination Bloodlines, which
You haven't checked.
Like I had seen Final Destination movies and was always like, I get it. Like it's kind of fun. It's fun. It's a horror movie, but it's always kind of been more of a comedy because it's these Rube Goldberg situations of how people end up, death catches up to them after they've somehow cheated death. And I was like, okay, whatever. And there's a new one, and I didn't go see it in the theater, but it popped up on HBO Max, now renamed HBO Max. And so we threw it on. It's easily the best Final Destination movie. And I can confirm that because then we were like, we should go back and watch the other ones. And we watched all 6 Final Destination movies, or five that came before this. And they're not very good. Like none of them are actually particularly great. They just have a really good concept, and I think this one executed on it way better than the ones that existed. It hit the humor a little bit more, but it kind of leaned into the domino effect of things. And yeah, I just had a blast, and I got just sitting on the couch, not like even I think in a theater I would have been out of my mind with how much fun it was. So this was a big surprise for me of the summer was how much I enjoyed Final Destination Bloodlines and how confident I am that it is easily the best one in a series.
Candidate for class clown for me was there's a moment in Final Destination Bloodlines where a character is revealed to have been fathered by a neighbor that he didn't know previously. And he cries and runs out of the room saying, "That's why he always wanted to play catch with me." And I died. I thought that was the funniest joke. It just made me so happy. So yeah, very fun movie. That's a great pick. So good job.
My pick is, again, for the sake of variety, F1. I haven't actually officially picked it for anything yet, I think. So this was kind of where I was going to give it a shout out. And this is purely for like the visceral, just like the zooms and the booms, like just really got to me in the theater. And I had such a fun time. And then it's also like the type of movie that it is, and the story to me is a little bit of a throwback to movies that I like. It made me nostalgic for movies from like the 90s in a way that I was not expecting in terms of like the type of story that it is. And then there's the sort of Brad Pitt factor that plays into that nostalgia as well, I think. So I had a really, really fun time, and I was by myself sitting in an IMAX theater full of F1 fans, and still had a great time.
I also picked F1 Registered Trademark, the movie, for much the same reason. I was going to exactly liken it to K-pop Demon Hunters, where I said, it's kind of clear I'm on the outside of a club. That's how it was when I showed up at F1. And I had like been in the lobby and saw they had 2 like popcorn buckets of the 2 rivals' helmets. And I was like, that's dumb. Nobody's going to buy those. And then watch person after person enter, having bought both the $40 or $50 popcorn buckets themselves. And it was a wild party. I think I pushed us to do that early screening, Jen, as I recall, and so that we could get the episode out early. But I was on Limax, and my regret of the summer is not going to real true IMAX for it, because with really big sound and really big screen, this movie was awesome. And I was just at a real, truly great IMAX theater to see Jaws over the weekend, and it was like, oh, F1 would have been so good here. So,
they
but
brought
still,
it back,
great
though,
time,
right?
movie.
Or is
yeah,
there?
They did. It did another week in a lot of the IMAX theaters once Weapons was also on the IMAX screens, but I don't think was shot for IMAX. So once Weapons cooled down a little, although I think my theaters were doing like F1 in the afternoon and Weapons still for the evening shows because that had so much business. But really, really great time at the theater and just felt like a party. And though I was on the outside, they welcomed me in, right? Like everybody was getting amped about it. So it was good. And I think the K-pop Demon Hunter people would have let me in too. Hey, you old man in the back sitting by himself, come sing songs with us. Couch. Yeah, couch. We all love couch.
Couch. You can't relate to that. Come on.
Are there any honorable mentions for Life of the Party? I'm always looking at Greg for honorable mentions because he saw twice as many movies as us. So he may have more answers.
I mean, I do just want to shout out, we should have more comedies. Comedies and horror remain the best things to see in the theater, even my choice aside. And I think the better they are, the more fun it is. So more of that, please.
Great. Well, our last silly category is most musical, which we are using for the best song or needle drop in a movie. And I was so happy when Greg chose this category because this was something I meant to bring up in our episode, but I forgot. It was in my notes, and then it never came up. And with all due respect, I am confident there's going to be actual songs sung in movies. One movie in particular that will get mentioned by other people in other categories, and those are all great answers. But my answer for this is the opening. I don't think it's the opening credits, but it's the opening scene of Weapons, which is when we have. I don't think this is spoilers. I think we're far enough after it was released that the basic premise of the movie happens, which is in the middle of the night at a particular time, one night, all of the students in one class in an elementary school leave their house, run out their doors, and just disappear into the night. And as that is described, that is set up in a pretty creepy voiceover of it's a young girl not trying to be creepy, but there's something creepy about that story being relayed by a child. The images of that happening are done over or with the song Beware of Darkness by George Harrison over it, which is from his initial solo album, All Things Must Pass, or at least his initial solo album of songs as opposed to just ambient soundtrack music. And just an incredible needle drop, in my opinion, an excellent choice because it's sort of a song about not being like lured in by the illusions of the material world. He was deep in his Hindu Krishna phase at the time. And so, just having a relationship with that song and having that come on while watching all these children just leaving the world behind and going to parts unknown. And, that being the mystery of this whole thing worked like gangbusters on me. I absolutely adored it. And I just enjoyed hearing that song on nice cranked up theater speakers. So that's my answer. Beware of Darkness by George Harrison, a brand new hit from 1970. Jen, what's your answer for this question?
I mean, it's hard not to just say all the songs from K-pop Demon Hunters because that's part of the miracle of it is that they're all great. Like when I'm listening to the soundtrack for the umpteenth time in my car with my kids, like we don't skip any. Sometimes the kids argue over like one of them wants Soda Pop and one of them wants Your Idol, but or Golden, right, or something like that. But otherwise, like no skips, I think is what we said on our review. That said, I think Golden's what they're going to be pushing for the Oscar, so I'm going to pick that one. That's like the classic song. I think if I were smuggling in a personal pick, the story gets the most emotional payoff with what it sounds like. So that would be like, I cry when I hear that song and think about the sort of like self-acceptance that is promoted by and catharsis that's kind of like in the narrative that song provides.
I'm going to talk about a movie that hasn't come up yet at all. And I think I related to these three. Maybe I did on air. I don't think it was on air. The night I went to my local AMC theater wearing my super snazzy, cool A24 t-shirt, looking so cool. And the bartender asked like, hey, That's an awesome t-shirt. You big A24 fan? I was like, yeah, I am, man. He's like, yeah. And we were grooving. Then he's like, so what are you here to see? And I was like, Freakier Friday, sir. So Freakier Friday, an actually pretty decent time at the movies. I'm certainly not the exact right generation for that. I'm a little old for the original Lindsay Lohan Freaky Friday, but two musical moments in that really struggled for me for the top. In one, Manny Jacinto is visiting the immigration office to try to get his marriage validated, and he's British, and so the woman who's interviewing him brings up Tub Thumping, the mega hit from Chumbawamba, and then because she has a crush on Manny Jacinto, starts to sing Tub Thumping, and you think it's over, and then out of nowhere, off screen, you just hear "Piercing the Night Away," and it was a really incredible moment. But if I really just have to pick one from that, they let Manny Jacinto, who is an incredible dancer, which you know from Good Place probably, they are doing a class to prepare for their wedding, and they put on the Dirty Dancing song, and Manny Jacinto does the full Patrick Swayze and prepares for the lift, but like he leans in and does the little strut, and it's flawless, and it was like my favorite musical moment in the theater. If you are not interested in seeing Freakier Friday, I believe he shared it on his social media, so you can see it there without watching the full film. But it's not bad. It's not a bad time at the movies.
I didn't even know he was in that. So now I might actually watch it.
Jen, come
Sorry.
on, Jen. He's like the,
I can't keep up
the
with
main
everything.
lead. He's getting married to Lindsay Lohan, so their daughters are not ready to be stepsisters, and they don't understand each other and their priorities. But then imagine that a fortune teller helps them by crossing their identities also with their mom/stepmom/grandma/step-grandma in a crazy mix-em-up that leads to hilarity. Come on, Jen, get in on it.
I was going to say, where is he in the marketing materials? That's all. That's all I'll say. Case closed. All right.
Right. It's me for best musical, and like Jen, I had to choose between the K-pop Demon Hunter songs. I am going to pick "This Is What It Sounds Like" because I also felt things when hearing that song. It's just I think it's really difficult to have like a climactic song that actually fits with the plot and that musically like holds up. And I thought that this really did. And I remember the moment like when she was like coming into the theater, starting the song, and thinking like, oh, they pulled this one off. But by my honorable mentions, also from K-pop Demon Hunters, so my youngest son really loves Your Idol, but I also think Free is a duet that that I don't think I appreciated on first listen as much, but then on because I think duets are also difficult to pull off really well, and I thought that was a nice moment as well. But yeah, no skips. But This Is What It Sounds Like is my pick.
Should we move on to the serious ones?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Jen, take us away.
All right. So, most likely to win an Academy Award. I'm going to take this opportunity. Yes, I'm going to mention K-pop Demon Hunters again, but I'm going to specifically frame it as an apology to my friend Anne. So if you go listen to our review of K-pop Demon Hunters, I try to talk Anne down from this is totally going to win Best Animated Feature, and I had to be like, okay, Anne, like let me explain to you what the Academy is like. They don't like things that are super popular. They don't really like Netflix. I had to kind of like be like, it can get nominated. And at that point, I think it hadn't reached its peak in terms of the cultural phenomenon factor. And so now I want to eat humble pie and say, I do think that it can win. Like, granted, things can happen, right? Flow, I think, was a late breaking contender, right? But I think at this point, it is the front runner in that category. And it's probably poised to win best song as well. So like I think its Oscar haul could be pretty good.
I'm going to jump in even out of order because I have this too. But my question is, because it was released first on Netflix and then into the theater, like I know that they changed that rule for like around for COVID, but did they change it back? Like, does the fact that it debuted on Netflix disqualify it from being nominated for Oscars? Does it have to go to the Emmys or what?
I think Netflix always does a qualifying amount of screenings because it
I see.
owns
Okay.
the Paris Theater in New York and the Egyptian here in LA. And I think any movie like Happy Gilmore 2 played in the Egyptian for a little while. And they had like a comedies that were screened around it at the same time. So they're always kind of doing that, but it's like Wednesday at 11 a.m. So you're not necessarily like paying attention to it. So I believe they just do that as a de facto thing. So I believe they should be fine. I've never heard anybody bring up that this could trip up the movie, which I will note was also on not my only entry, but I did have the best song. I think best song. That's one of the two most likely victories that I have on my list.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like Greg put likely to win, right? If I think it's likely to be nominated as a total, like lots more movies come to my mind in terms of could get a nomination, but in terms of could actually win the category that they get nominated in, that I think K-pop is the best bet.
I mean,
but I could be wrong.
I think that's especially the song. I think is like a done deal. So I'm not gonna pretend to say that's wrong. I wanted to lean into the bit, and I still think, and this is probably Jen just really punctured me by. I'm like, it's probably a nomination, not a win. I still think Life of Chuck is gonna come back around and surprise people, and I know that's an unpopular opinion here, but it didn't do as well as maybe it needed to, but it was really buzzy. And I think if it has the right streaming plan, then it's really going to have a shot at getting into the 10 Best Picture nominees. I think then saying it's going to win Best Picture is a long shot at this point. But the reason I think I wasn't on that episode, but the reason I kind of think cynically it's stronger than we imagine is because it's such a corrective to the Anora film, right? And like we've seen this before when we have a kind of wild out there film, then we swing back to something very traditional, right? I guess that would be Everything Everywhere swinging back to Oppenheimer. I have those in the right time period, right? So I just think that Anora, fantastic film, not denying the quality of that, better movie than Life of Chuck. I think it really is like, oh, we really pushed the envelope and we're like, we'll do something racier and kind of more madcap and all those kind of non-traditional small things. And Life of Chuck just feels like so straight down the middle, traditional Oscar bait. It feels like a coda, right? So I think it's in the mix for that. But we'll see. The looks I'm getting, listeners, just these like half-hearted head tilts that are like, I don't know, dude, you're dreaming. Probably. But I still really like that movie. I didn't get to be on that episode. It was a joy of my summer. I actually saw it and then dragged my wife to it, and she really loved it. So it was great.
I think it looks like it only grossed $2.3 million. It's not good, Greg.
But what if they re-release it?
No. The streaming, like, it could breathe new life into the campaign, but I think it's a little bit of a long shot. I think, I don't know, but
so I mean, Antonio, did you feel you said your piece on K-pop?
Said my piece.
Okay, so this is good because I was going to try to choose between these two. I already mentioned K-pop for best song, but the other one I had was F1 for best sound. Just in terms of winning, it's like blockbuster movie. Kaczynski's already been there. One of his movies already won best sound. If they, they were like, oh, this did it, surprise at the box office. Is it like impossible that it gets pipped? I know another movie that the three of us dropped the ball on, but Greg saw, Warfare. He said that's locked in because it's so good. That may, bubble up. There's usually, sound has been, once Zone of Interest won in sound, it was kind of like, okay, we can get interesting with sound, and F1 probably isn't interesting. That's traditional, like a war movie or a, blockbuster, and especially with vroom vroom cars or zoom zoom planes. But I think that's in terms of winning the most likely. If we were going around nominations, maybe there's one or two screenplays that like that's where I think if Life of Chuck has a chance to maybe like get in, it could be like, oh, maybe there's room for an adapted screenplay opening, and that they might want to put it in there. There's a supporting actress performance that has already been mentioned, but I won't dig into anymore because it might constitute a spoiler, even naming the performer, let alone the movie. So, I think there's stuff there, but if we're talking about wins, I think it's very possible we have seen the winners in song and in sound.
All right. Who's next?
Back over to me, because that was Jen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the next one on our list is best screenplay, and I reminded us writing matters in blockbusters, right? Like we forget about the writing, but when we have talked a lot about underwhelming experiences during the summer, I think that's often down to writing, right? When things didn't come together fully and didn't have the best script maybe to begin with. So best screenplay of the summer, writing matters in blockbusters. But then I wrote that, and then I'm like, man, it is hard to pick something with good writing this summer. So I will go to the aforementioned 28 Years Later, which is Alex Garland, and who wrote the screenplay reuniting with Danny Boyle. A lot has been made of the technical aspects of this movie, how they shot it with a really crazy iPhone rig, and there is some kind of really technical stuff that's very cool. Not enough to make it into the best cinematography, I don't think, but it's still kind of really cool to experience. But this is a well-written movie, and it, really from its opening through, I think the only complaint I would have is as well has been well documented. The very final scene is more of a baton pass to the next movie than like we finished this movie on a great note. So I think some people have said that really should be after the credits and you'd solve the problem. But it's really great. So I think that's a good script, and I would vote for that for best screenplay from what I saw this summer.
Right. So now it's to me. I could say K-pop Demon Hunters. I'm going to not say that. I'm going to go to Zach Krager's for Weapons here. And even though I have some issues with sort of like ultimate resolution of the plot, what I think was really successful was that each of the point of view sections was just like really compelling in and of themselves. And that comes down to like really deft writing. Like a genre that doesn't always pay that much attention to like in-depth characterization does so here, and gave their actors, like each actor, like a feast, something to do, and it was really interesting and compelling to watch, and just a really interesting experience as a moviegoer to watch a horror movie and yeah, I mean, I actually think that I wasn't as like scared during that movie as I am during certain other like horror films. Like I wasn't like burying my eyes to like avert whatever, so much as just really invested in every single person who came onto the screen, and that's a credit to him. So that's my pick. PT, how about you?
That's a good pick, and that was one I almost made, except that there were other places I knew I was going to be mentioning Weapons. This was the last answer I had when I was looking through, similar to sort of Greg's conundrum, where I was like, oh boy, like which one of these is actually the best out of all that we have? So I don't know, I am not saying I think this is going to end up in any sort of, award discussion, but looking through the movies that I saw that were released over the summer, the movie that I think benefited the most from the screenplay, I'm saying, is Superman. Even though I was the softest on it, I think that the choices it made in the story, I'm not the softest, maybe not the softest, but I was soft on it. But I think that the choices it made in the story structure and in the way it set up the story, the way it framed things, and the way it tried to integrate all these different elements and characters going into it. One of my biggest worries was I was like, there's too many things in the trailer. This is not going to be able to withstand itself. I think it did a good job of telling the story it wanted to tell and really kind of building the core characters that we needed to care about, being Superman, Lois Lane, and Lex Luthor, and whatever other issues that there may be. I'm sure many of them could be stemmed to the screenplay, or be drawn back to the screenplay. But I'm going to say Superman, and also note that's a very soft winner because I did not feel like anything had exceptional writing. And when there was stuff that I was like, this could be really good writing, like to Antonio's point, and I'm assuming to Greg's point, because I did not see 28 years later, it's possible that there's other technical elements that supersede that to me in terms of what made it successful. Jen, what do you think?
This is a little bit of a cheat because Greg talked up writing matters for big blockbusters too. But I'm going to go with the smallest movie that I've seen that came out this summer, and that is Sorry Baby, Ava Victor's directorial debut, which I actually had. It was only in prepping for this episode did I remember that it had a summer release, because I had seen it at Sundance. And so I was like, I kind of wasn't paying it. Like, I wasn't anticipating it. So I wasn't really paying attention to when it was going to come out in theaters. And this, to me, has the best writing. It manages a very complex tone in a very deft way. And there's one scene over a sandwich that just is maybe still vying for one of the best. Granted, fall festival season's right around the corner, but vying for me for one of the best written and acted scenes of the year so far. So that's my pick. Not a blockbuster. Sorry, Greg.
So best director, I'm gonna go with Joseph Kosinski for F1. This is another great film from him, breathing life into a genre that I wasn't chomping at the bit to revisit, but had such a great time from the beginning to the end. And so much of that, as charismatic as Brad Pitt and Kerry Condon are, you have to have like someone great orchestrating all of this and putting it together. And there's just like no one working at the same, hardly anyone working at the same level as him at that. So Kosinski for me, PT.
Great. This is where I put Zach Kreger for Weapons,
Okay.
which everything you said about the writing, I believe, is true. But I was like, just the moves with the camera, the way in which visually the story was told, and the times in which the different segments have moments of overlap or even contradiction, and that's told, how that's relayed visually, and the suspense that's built up across some of the very long shots, as well as moments when we're getting these quick cuts between things. Like, there's some things that I think back to the visual moments in that movie, and I can get some chills from it just thinking back on it. It's stuck with me. I am stronger on Weapons now than I was when we recorded the episode, when I think we were, I felt pretty positively about it then, but as time has gone on, I've only felt better about it. And I do think the directing is a key part of it, in addition to the writing, but I wanted to spread things around. So this is where I'm rewarding Zach Kreger for Weapons. Jen, how about you?
So I also had Joseph Kosinski for F1. I'm not going to add, Antonio said it eloquently, so I'm just going to second his.
What a strange lane he has. Was what Antonio's comments made me think about. Like, big, weird, technically interesting zoom and vroom. It's great.
With a big aging box office icon.
And if you listen, he did a really good episode of the DGA podcast, and he talks a lot about like working with F1 and how for like Las Vegas, they were like, you can have 2 hours from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. to get the shots you need. And then we tear down the track because that's the way it is. So there's a lot that went into that too. Boy, it's embarrassing that PT copied Antonio's answer from the last question. I would hate to do that. Hey, but I have Eva Victor here. And I will say, Sorry Baby was a movie that made me really, really happy this summer at the movies. It's a devastating movie in a lot of ways, but it was a really wonderful movie. And it's in the shadow of many categories. I even had it for a while for my choice for chemistry, because I think Eva Victor and Naomi Aki have great chemistry at the top of that film in particular. I kind of think maybe Jen took the right lane because the script is so good and the characters are so well drawn. But because it was her show and she's the director and it's her debut film, I went director. But Sorry Baby, I think, is one a lot of people missed. It got a pretty quiet June opening, I think, or maybe it was July. But
I think it went wide in July, but it opened June.
It's definitely in the A24 app and on streaming services now, so people should grab that and check it out. It's very much worth seeing. And she was just in across all categories kind of a revelation for me. I guess she had a role on some television shows before now, but I was not familiar with her, and I just thought she really nailed the academic world that we all live in, and it was great. So that's my pick.
Excellent. All right. For our penultimate category of the episode, we have best performance of the summer. And this is where I kind of shuffled around. I had it in first or second place. This a movie that was on my hype draft list that I wanted to make sure I mentioned, and I ended up deciding sort of with the my other answers will probably already be covered at some point. So this is where I'm putting Denzel Washington for highest to lowest, or is what I'm putting the movie highest to lowest, and I'm picking Denzel Washington, which is a little bit of sure, of course, Denzel. What are you gonna do? And one of the great things that I have enjoyed in our time together on this podcast is looking back at earlier Oscar years and catching up. I'm the one who's always cramming homework to catch up on movies. And one of the things that's happened a couple of times is Denzel nominations that I was like, I don't have to see that movie. The year it comes out, it's yeah, I get it. Denzel's going to be nominated. It's fine. And then watching the movie and being like, oh man, Denzel's great in this. He deserves this. And I watched Highest to Lowest. You know what? Denzel's great in this. And if he gets nominated, he would absolutely deserve it. But this was also the movie that was maybe going to be in my WTF moment. So this is my chance I'm going to take to talk about that. And it's because this movie is really interesting. My reaction to it felt odd, and it seems that a lot of other people have had the same reaction, so I don't feel so lonely about it. This is the latest Spike Lee movie. It is based on the same material, the same novel as an Akira Kurosawa movie from the early 60s called High and Low, which is of course set in Japan, but it was based on a novel set in, I think, New York. And so we're back in New York. And so it's adapted from the original novel and also Kurosawa's movie. And for the first half of the movie, it follows pretty closely. There's, some changes. There's some different elongation of different beats and everything, but it's kind of the same thing. And it's not very good. It's kind of oh, this isn't great. Why am I watching this instead of High and Low? And then there's a moment halfway through where there's a major sequence that I'm not going to talk about, even though once you see the movie, you'll be like, yep, this is the sequence where everything changes. If Spike Lee starts doing more Spike Lee camera movements, the overbearing and aggressively mediocre score goes away and is replaced by all of my second choices for needle drop for that category. It's just all songs. And Denzel takes over the movie. And instead of it being what the original movie was where his character is not as that his equivalent character is not as prominent in those sequences, it becomes Denzel's movie and he is absolutely killing it. So I'm gonna say Denzel for this. I don't know, it'll probably get lost in the shuffle. I don't think people are falling in love with this movie. I think this is going to die a very bad death when it hits streaming, because the first half of it is again kind of weird and kind of not that great, and I think in some ways is intentionally so to set up the change in the second half. And that is a level of patience that streaming audiences probably won't have. But Denzel's incredible in this, and he does a really good job. And it's hard to fill the shoes of Toshiro Mifune, but he really made it his own. And that's in a way not surprising, but I think is also notable. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk about Highest to Lowest, a movie we'll probably never mention again. So Jen, how about you? What was your favorite performance of the year, or the best performance of the year?
So for
Summer.
This category, I actually have a tie, and the theme of the tie is underappreciated women who are carrying superhero movies. In theory, you could expand this to a three-way tie, but I'm not going to do that. So I have Florence Pugh in Thunderbolts and Rachel Brosnahan in Superman. And I feel like, first of all, Thunderbolts in general, a great movie. I really enjoyed that. No one cares about, and is really underappreciated, largely because apparently the box office was pretty weak, and people were like, "Yeah, whatever, MCU." But Florence Pugh is carrying that movie on her back. It does not work without her performance, and what people don't really think about or stop to think about is that she has a bunch of monologues about depression, and she sells it. Right? It's like if you on paper had told me, or we have this superhero character who like was sort of obscure character in a bunch of Disney Plus shows, and now she's going to be in a superhero movie talking about depression, I would be like, what? Like, what? That makes don't do that. Like, that sounds like a terrible idea. But she does a great job. And Rachel Brosnahan in Superman, because once they announced that she was going to be Lois Lane, I was like, that's perfect. That makes total sense. Good job. But somehow she still managed to exceed my expectations. And in particular, that interview scene that's early in the movie, she just crushes it so hard that arguably the movie, for the rest of the movie, we're just riding off the momentum of that scene, right? And yeah, so that's my TED Talk about actresses in superhero movies.
I mean, I am pretty mad at Jen for first taking my answer and then taking all my talking points. But I will say I could change it up and throw in Vanessa Kirby just to complete the trifecta. But I gave it to Rachel Brosnahan, and the talking point Jen stole from me, which is I was just going to point to that interview scene. That's like the moment I clicked into that movie and I was most engaged. And I think that's where the themes get laid bare. And if you kind of are trying to figure out what it has to say, it's all right in that scene and it's sold by her. I think the movie suffers because she gets lost and eventually just spends a bunch of time flying around a spaceship and doing editorial work while flying a spaceship. I mean, it's cool. There's real journalism in the journalist movie. Like, I'm not really making fun of that, but I think, I think she had charm that, David Cornsweet did really, really well. But I think if I had to pick a winner of the two of them, it has to be Brosnahan. So she was my best performance. Some of the smaller movies I've mentioned have way better performances, but I really wanted to honor blockbusters because it is a skill to be in one of these movies and to not get lost. But I see you, Jodie Comer, who everybody else keeps missing. I still see you in Bike Riders, Jodie Comer. I think that made less than Life of Chuck, but I still see you. And there are some other very small indies that are out there doing good work. But, it's hard to be in a blockbuster and react to a green screen and a tennis ball. And Brosnahan killed it.
For me, first of all, I do want to say Florence Pugh is incredible. And yes, she can pull off those dramatic monologues in the context of a superhero movie, but she's also incredibly funny. Like there are lines where I think that Wyatt Russell says something about like his hat or something, and she's like, "You like that hat?" or something, and it just cracked me up. Just the delivery of it alone cracked me up. For me, the performance of the summer, back to Weapons and Amy Madigan. In my Letterboxd review, I wrote that she gave a performance that was all the best parts of American Horror Story, like all the most electric characters of American combined into one character. And what I liked it, I stopped watching that show because the just diminishing returns over time. But in the beginning, one of the things that I remember Jessica Lange saying when she started was just like, I just really appreciate having something to do. Right. And so, like a celebrated actress who, when you initially sort of saw the casting, you were like, "Oh, this doesn't seem like a fit for Jessica Lange to be doing this like to this horror show." But then you watch the show, and then you see like the range of things that she gets to do, right? And it's just really nice. And like that happened to like Kathy Bates, Angela Bassett, and so to see Amy Madigan, a wonderful actress who we haven't seen in a little bit, just to really give her something to sink her teeth into. For like articles and interviews to be written about her now at this stage of her career, I think is really great. And she just really delivers. And again, this is a movie that has really strong performances. Like every point of view, I wasn't bored during a single section of this movie. There wasn't a weak section. And she doesn't even get her own point of view section, but she still is just so incredible, and really threads this movie with just sheer will and just like some just awesome choices. So that's my choice.
All right, we get to the final category. We shove our beleaguered host Jen out of the way so that I can close out my game rightfully. And so look at this. We're going to talk in a minute about what summer movie season means and if it means anything at all. But here's one definition of a good summer is, did you go to the movies and did you see a great movie while eating your favorite snack in some blissfully comfortable air conditioning? And I don't care if that's a new movie or an old movie, or you know what, you just went and watched the pre-show and then you got a call that you had to leave. That happened to me once this summer. So I want to know best film of the summer, and it could be that you saw something not released brand new this summer. I will start, and I will say, for me, when I added all this up, I was most excited about Marvel this summer. I was very excited about Mission Impossible. I was even like really into a bunch of these indie releases that were buzzy and could have Oscar stuff. But the one I didn't see coming, and that hit me like a speeding car, was F1 Registered Trademark, the movie. And this was the best time I had at the movies this summer. And I haven't rewatched it yet, but I plan to as soon as it hits free Apple TV. And I think this was, for me, just such a charming, fun movie. I can't wait to show my family it. Very much in the spirit of Top Gun Maverick or a good Mission Impossible movie. Antonio, I'll throw to you because we're going to just make Jen go last since I cut her off and didn't let her intro her own category.
F1 is an excellent choice. That's probably my best time at the theater was seeing that. I had like a former student who was about to start law school and he wanted to beat up, and I just really wanted to see this movie. So I said like, yeah, let's have lunch, but then will you watch this with me? And he said sure. So we had a great time. It's just a fantastic time at the movies. It's just so much fun. K-pop Demon Hunters though is as all the awards that I have heaped on it today is probably my best movie overall though for the summer. PT, what about you?
I'm going to slide in like 10 answers now real quick to try to save time. But my favorite segment of a movie is that last hour of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. If we're talking about sitting in a theater and being blown away on seeing it on a huge IMAX screen. Absolutely loved it. Haven't had a chance to go back and rewatch it. It will probably move down my list of movies of the year once I actually reconcile with and remember that there's 2 hours before that hour. And I have to sit through it again, but that's okay. I really enjoyed that. Like best theatrical experience that is a new movie that isn't fair to really put into this category, but I'm going to say it anyway, was I went to a screening of the new documentary that has ended up on Netflix about the band Devo, and the members of the band Devo came out for a Q&A afterwards. And that was excellent, especially because they came out and they made it very clear they don't like the documentary Devo about the band Devo. They thought it did a bad job of telling their story, but it's seemingly because they all have their own like thoughts about what the band is, and that's partially why the band keeps breaking up and coming back together. And they wanted to tell their version, and instead the person made a third-party version. But still, that was a great time. My actual favorite moment in a theater was sitting next to Antonio and also next to Jasmine, watching the movie Jaws at Vidiots, hearing him react, hearing a bunch of other people who had raised their hands to say they had never seen it before. Absolutely incredible 50th anniversary. We talked about it a bunch on an earlier episode here, as well as episodes on another podcast, Force Ghost Conversations. You could hear stuff about it there. If I had to put my favorite movie of the summer and just say that and cut out all the theatrical stuff, I think it's Weapons. I think I'm on to Weapons has raised itself up over Mission Impossible for me. Jen, how about you? Is there a question?
No, not really. But the when I think of, but I do have a preamble prepared. So when I think of this summer at the movies, I think what makes it stand out, at least in the recent past of summers at the movies, is that more people in my everyday life seem to be plugged into the movies. And I think the epitome of that is K-pop Demon Hunters, right? Where it's like, oh, we have, that's what the show arguably is all about. We have our own nerd corner where we see all these movies and we like talking about them and we stay, up to date on what's coming out and what's new. Whereas people don't engage with movies and keep track of them in that way. But now it kind of K-pop Demon Hunters do this magical thing where it's like we have a monoculture moment again. And so it's just so fun where it's like my daughter wants to be Rumi for Halloween. Parents are talking about, like, parents that I know at school are talking about, oh, for trunk or treat this year, like, should we do a bunch of K-pop Demon Hunter trunks, right? Like we could do a Saja Boys and a Huntrix trunk, right? And it's just like bubbling and sizzling in a way that only summer movie season I think can make happen. It just happens that it went from streaming to theaters in a very unconventional order. But yes, but I think that was, and same thing with Superman. I feel like a lot of people came out of the woodwork to kind of talk to me about that movie in a way that it injected new life and new interest into, you could even argue, superhero movies again. So yeah.
Should we go to the
All right.
rhetorical situation?
Yeah, Jen, hit us with the theme song.
All right. So this is the rhetorical situation, a segment in which we look at a film through the lens of our academic experience. So all four of our, oh, do you want to do the, okay. So when you said I can do it, I didn't know if that meant the whole thing.
No, that was my fault. I was like, I can do the question since I'd frame it, but that was like, oh wait, but she should do her normal thing, and I completely screwed that up. That was
anyway. This is the rhetorical situation. Here's Greg.
All right, so we had a lot of fun tonight. We made a lot of friends. We talked about a lot of movies, or one movie many, many times. So let me just say, here's my question for kind of the rhetorical situation. The summer movie season is traditionally like a thing, and it matters what is the number one movie at the box office during every weekend this year. It matters that the theaters make a ton of money. But my question to each of you, and you can each just kind of give your own answer or bounce off each other, is this still a thing that matters? Is this worth talking about, or have we grown beyond it in some way? Notably, as we're talking about, the box office for the year, the most blockbustery successful movie is Minecraft, which was not eligible for this conversation. And I think in terms of best kind of critically acclaimed blockbuster, we'd be talking about Sinners, which was also not eligible for this conversation. And then the number 2 movie of the year is the remake of Lilo and Stitch, which none of us have mentioned until this moment, I don't think, giving it awards. So it kind of says, well, the things that matter in the summer don't really seem to matter, and the things that are outside the summer matter more. So is this just an antiquated kind of categorization, or do you think summer as a kind of ontological category still matters?
You threw some big words in at the end. I think it matters. Maybe it doesn't matter quite as much. And that is because the cycle of a movie being in the theaters and then being available at home is so fast now. And it feels like there's attempts. They're trying to maybe slow that down because the studios are realizing, we make a lot more money when it's in the theaters as opposed to from streaming. So in that sense, maybe it will sort of come back. But, I think that we've been seeing, there's frequently been a big comic book movie that comes out in February. There's also a November slot for that. And then there's the Christmas blockbuster that's going to be Avatar this year. It was Star Wars movies for a while. It was Harry Potter movies before that, or Lord of the Rings movies. And so, the year is expanded out, and what was sort of, speaking of Jaws, is sort of like, the summer blockbuster and this kind of movie that like took over in the summer, but then receded to, during the fall and the winter, is kind of always around. And in that sense, via counter programming, the littler movies are also always sort of around. So, even when Antonio says he hibernates in the summer, like, you still had Sorry Baby, you still had Materialists, like, you still had these small movies that would come out. So, I think that maybe it matters less as a differentiation. Perhaps we never should have become obsessed with the box office. That's how these companies are successful. And like, that's not really a measure of quality. And maybe it's a measure of audience. But as things shift more and more to these locked box streaming viewer numbers where we don't see that and we don't know, it seems like it's folly to say, oh, well, that's a measure of how popular it is. See the most popular movie of our episode, K-pop Demon Hunters, which when you look at the box office made $19 million, which is not a lot of money, but it only was in theaters for 2 days. And a lot of people went to see it those 2 days, and it was number one for that weekend. So, the raw numbers are not really a good measure of success, I guess, is a way of answering your question. And I think the idea of summer as blockbuster is still maybe relevant, or at least, something that is worth discussing. But I think that actual connection on the calendar has shriveled over time.
So to go to specifically, first of all, well said, PT. I think to go to specifically to this disconnect, which I think has always been true of summer movie season, between, like you said, Lilo and Stitch was the top grosser at the box office, and yet none of us picked it for anything. It's not a terrible movie, but it's just not particularly notable. It's a live action remake of a movie that already existed and was arguably great and didn't need to be remade, right? Especially shot by shot, more or less, in the way that it is in the live action version. But that's kind of like I think a healthy tension. And what it makes me think of is that Greg and I in grad school had a professor who used to always use this catchphrase when talking about this one theorist, and she used to always say, "You can't eat prestige." And so arguably the part of that is like art, like the starving artist, like trying to pick apart the idea of the starving artist and the idea that like we need things that are more populist and a little bit more popular. So you could kind of take that me bringing this up in a couple different ways. One is like, we shouldn't judge people for liking a live action remake of Lilo and Stitch. Like, we shouldn't be so snooty and kind of, because that arguably the money that Disney's making off of that movie pays for other things, right? Or that contributes to the health of the industry, which then could pay for the Sorry Babies of the world, right? So it's like the question of like judging people's taste, which at us as like if you've ever heard us give out our own awards, right? Like, we are very highbrow in terms of like movies that we like. We follow Oscar movies and award season and stuff like that. So all that is to say, I think that like the construct still matters, but maybe we should not be as judgy about it. I don't know. We should just let it be, right? Like,
for me, for summer movies, I mean, I think that we're focusing on the blockbuster action film because those are the sort of the tentpole movies that studios are really striving for. But I also think of like summer, I don't know, in terms of like my cinematic palette, what I want in summer is something light, right? Like something that is just pleasurable. And part of, I think, the disappointment of this summer, like, I don't care about the box office, like whatever, that doesn't matter to me. But the fact that we didn't have that many great laughs, that many great comedies, that's concerning, right? Because we're about to hit the fall season where we get into some of these big Oscar movies, and it's not going to be they're not going to be a ton of comedies, I imagine, coming then. So if we haven't had them at this point, we're probably not going to get them this year. And so, I'm a little bit sad because one of my favorite like summer movie memories was theater camp, right? And watching that with PT and Jasmine, and like that's just sort of like the perfect kind of like movie to discover in the summer, but also just the right feel for the summer. It's just how I want to feel in the summer when I'm off and just like having a good time with my friends. Like that just seems right. And so, there were things that I really liked and things that I didn't like as much. But I don't know. I think that you're probably right that it does matter, that the category still matters, and that it's still an expectation of audiences. But that expectation shouldn't just be isolated to just like, this, like, these particular kinds of film like that. I want that too. I like seeing a good big blockbuster action film as well. But I think that's the missing part for me of the summer was scratching that itch.
Well, Antonio, just as an aside, I'll say my last 4 on Letterboxd were at one point this weekend: Jaws, 5-star; Wizard of Oz, 5-star. Hadn't shown my son that movie. And then my next film, I believe, was Hot Rod, because we backed up to show him. We just had this kind of spur of the moment thing, like, oh, we got to show Henry Hot Rod. That's a hilarious movie. And I couldn't put it at 5 stars. I didn't have the heart. So I put it to the 4.5. But like, it is, I use that example as like, it is a part of a healthy movie diet is to get some good laughs. And I highlighted a couple this summer that really I enjoyed. Though again, it's such a small part and they weren't big hit movies in the mix. Although I think Naked Gun did pretty well as a part of that. So I think it's really kind of crazy what we're about to enter into. And I don't know how much the like general public feels it, but Antonio just said it right. Like, we're headed into like a wall of movies, right? And there are going to be some really good movies and there are going to be some challenging movies and some like soul destroying movies, because that's just how they go across the fall. And it is a particularly crowded fall, I think, this year as I look at the calendar ahead. Hoping a little Knives Out levity might come, although it's looking perhaps a little darker. But one of the things I think what I come down to is it was always a fake category, summer movies, and it will continue to be a fake category. I know in the UK, let me back up. I saw the movie Love Actually. So I'm told in the UK, the number one charting song on Christmas matters a lot in UK culture. And I feel like the number one movie of the summer matters in that way here in the US. It's kind of like a badge of honor, but it's not like it necessarily leads to, great memory and legacy, to use the language of the question. But then I will bounce back to what PT said, and a little while ago, I think it was PT. I don't know. I don't really listen to whichever one of you is talking. It might have been Jen. But it was the fact that movie culture feels like it's up right now, and that feels really, really good, right? I went to the theater so many times this summer, and it was busy. And I have been to many a bleak AMC in the middle of the night, and to see people in line and buying popcorns, and yes, buying the stupid buckets, which make people happy. So I'm not going to ever begrudge them. And, I think the other silly metric I'll use, and this will be my last comment because it's been a long show. I have a good friend. I'll leave him nameless because it's a little personal. He's on the dating apps, and he really hates being on the dating apps. I think we're all in committed relationships. We're not on the dating apps. We don't understand the unique, pain of trying to find a partner in a meaningful way on the dating apps in general. And one thing he likes to send me is he's heterosexual male, so he sends me these posts by women, and the women are looking for men who are into movies. Like, it's right in their profile that they want to know who are the Stubbs members out there, who goes to the repertoire screenings, who does all this. And he's always like, Greg, you can clean up on these apps. And I'm like, I am married. I do not need to clean up anywhere. But it really, to me, is kind of inspiring that young people in particular, that's not the only people on those apps, but they're looking to connect over movies, and there's a thriving film culture. So, I think it's really fun. And I think Big Picture just recently had an episode where they reference theater should lean into this. Open the bar after the screenings, have people hang out, make it into book club, but for movies. But I think movies are alive and well. And if it took a summer season to get us there, then amen. Jen, hit us with the Oscar Watch theme song real quick.
Let's do it. right. So, I mean, we already talked about which movies from the summer we think are viable Oscar candidates, right?
All I want to say is it's festival season now, right? It's Labor Day. We
Yes.
just ended blockbuster season. We just closed it out together. Let's go, baby. Movies. Let's go see some soul-crushing art that really makes us feel alive.
Don't wear white and don't have hope after Labor Day.
Wow.
That's it.
Yeah.
Edit out as needed. Put it after the credits as needed.
No, you're right. Now I feel like Greg's done so much work. Do you want to take us out? Just I don't know. Do whatever you want.
What a wonderful show it has been. What a wonderful journey. I think we all pride ourselves as movie watchers, except maybe Antonio, who keep their feet in both categories, right? We do like to keep up with the blockbusters and we like to keep up with the art house. And, it's fun to close this out. And all of that talk just now that I forced upon us, even though everybody wants to go to bed, is just a reminder that, we used to always keep one eye on the Oscar race, and now we're turning both. It's time to get going with that, and that's a really exciting part about September. So if people are interested in checking out your work on the internet, Antonio, where can they find you? And I also know, like Jen, that there's only one place.
They can find me on Letterboxd at Elefano, Aelefano. Greg, where can they find you?
People can find me on way too many podcasts, but other than that, they can find me on Letterboxd and Instagram at EyonCanon, EYEONCANON. Just tonight on my Instagram, I revealed what I look at while I'm on these calls talking to all you fine people. That's exclusive to Instagram. PT, where can people find you?
If people want to know which 1980s sword and sorcery movies are good, it's none of them. They can follow my Letterboxd at PT McNiff, PTMCNIFF. You can also follow the show there at LTR Pod, or you can check us out on Instagram, Threads, or Blue Sky at The Long Take Review. You can email us and bully us into doing an Eddington episode, thelongtakereview@gmail.com, or you can just subscribe and like and leave a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. Why don't you just hit that button right now, wherever you're listening to this, and you can get future episodes from us right away. Jen, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at Sopchockchai, SOPCHOCKCHAI, or on Letterboxd at Qui-Gon Jen. And big shout out to Greg for doing all the heavy lifting with this episode. I really appreciate it. You're ready, little bird.
Craig,
You're ready to fly.
Craig.
Breaking news. Smashing Machine, 15 minutes standing ovation.
What?
15 minutes?
Best actor
Get
campaign
outta here.
Start now. Let's go.
Oh.
That's the A24 talking. I'm going to go fact check this.